Welcome to the Metabolic MD. Health means everything. We all seek optimal health, but most of us do not know how to achieve it. Dr. Paul Kolodzik has spent a career in the emergency department. Now, he helps his patients avoid ever ending up there. During these podcasts, you'll learn how you can lose weight and prevent and reverse disease through new technology, a modified diet, and the use of some new recently approved FDA medications. This information is not meant to be medical advice. Please seek consultation from your own medical provider. Let's listen in.
We want to thank our following sponsors, themetabolicmds.com, a boutique weight loss practice focusing on weight loss through modern technology, the latest GLP-1 weight loss medications, and health coaching. We also want to thank the CGM Doctor, where you can purchase a CGM without a prescription delivered right to your door and also find useful information to get the most from your CGM to improve your health and weight.
It's June. We're on the verge of summer, just a few days away. We're sitting here and we said, Dr. Paul, why don't we answer some of these questions that we've been getting online? Great. And you said what?
I said, sure.
You said it more enthusiastically, though. Okay, so today we're going to take some of the questions that have been coming in, and we'll keep names out of it just to avoid any issues there. But basically, these are topics concerning weight loss, GLP-1s, all that kind of stuff that we like to cover. But before we do that, you had asked me, why don't we talk a little bit about your book, because it is the greatest Christmas gift ever.
So in June, we're going to talk about the greatest
Buy
Christmas
it now
gift.
while you can.
Actually, great July 4th gift, too.
Great July 4th gift. Before the tariffs hit, that book price is going to go way up.
No, I think they're made domestically here. So.
All right, so you that book came out, what, about 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago in May, and it's been great. I mean, first experience for me writing a book, and I get a lot of positive feedback on how the use of CGMs are impacting people's lives. I mean, quite honestly, I got an email this week from a lady who I called up, and she doesn't live in one of the states that I'm licensed in.
But you can sell our CGM.
Yeah, so we can sell CGMs in any state.
Yeah.
But she's in California, and she wanted to be a patient of mine, and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not licensed in California, but we can talk in general terms for 10 or 15 minutes over the phone, because you sent me this nice email which literally said, so this is what she said. She said, first of all, this has changed my life. Getting a CGM on me and seeing what's going on with my blood sugar.
It really
she
does.
was pre-diabetic, and then learning how she needs to eat, how she needs to fast, how she needs to work out to address that. And then this was the kicker. She told me, and you changed my hairdresser's life too.
Why is that?
Because she talked to her hairdresser about, she went into her hairdresser with a CGM on. And they got into this conversation, and she said her hairdresser was like 5'2" and 230 pounds. And so they both have kind of supported each other mutually on this journey, and are both having good results. So it's just, kind of at this point in my career, I get, warm and fuzzy feelings from stuff like that.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. So if you're interested in the book, they can buy the book on Amazon. It is, I'll let you like to say you're the best-selling book on CGMs
on Amazon.
And now we're one of the top podcasts out there, just in general. We're on the top 5% of podcasts.
Of all podcasts.
I can't believe people don't have something better to do than listen to us. First off.
Speak for yourself, Gary.
All right, so to get to the point today, you're going to be the Shell Answer Man, and for anybody our age, they'll remember the Shell Answer Man. But we have 3 or 4 questions here that came in, and the first one is, are you ready?
I'm ready.
How long do I stay on a GLP-1, and when do I know it's time to get off of it?
So, great topic. There's no definitive answer to that question.
But I thought the effectiveness wore off after a period of time.
I think that you really get into a maintenance phase where they can continue to contribute to good health.
Okay.
But this is a pertinent topic right now. So the approach I have always taken with my patients is, let's get a CGM on you for a couple weeks. Let's see where you live in terms of what's going on with your insulin resistance. And then if you want to go on a GLP-1, we'll use that. We usually take people off the CGM for a period of time because, the GLP-1 is going to lower your blood sugar. So, you're going to get accurate readings of what your blood sugar is during that time, but you get a little bit of a false sense of security because the medicine is pushing down your blood sugar, which of course is one of the mechanisms by which it helps with your weight loss.
Right.
And then as you start titrating down and off the medication, we reinstitute the use of the CGM so that you can get that additional help to guide your diet as you're coming off the medication.
So we had this little talk before I hit the record button over here, that your feeling towards GLP-1s are a miracle drug because of all the different ways it can change lives and affect health.
Yeah.
And can you go into any of that at all? Because you're sharing a little bit with me.
Yeah. So actually, we're doing these segments now where we talk about what's in the news recently. And so I saved one of these that, again, Wall Street Journal this week, and the title of the article is, "Should everyone be taking Ozempic? Doctors say more people could benefit." So this brings up the issue of, what are these medicines good for? So this integrates into the question of how long should I be on one and when should I come off it?
Sure.
Well, so, the pharmaceutical firms are doing what any good business or research firm would do, is they're trying to find more and more indications as to why people should be on these medications. So let me just give you kind of a laundry list of the things that are being looked at. Okay.
All right.
So right now they're approved for treating diabetes, of course, or their original use, and for weight loss. Okay. Another indication that has been approved recently is to decrease the risk of a second cardiac event in patients that have cardiac issues. So a simple way to say that is if you had a previous heart attack, then this medication can help you prevent another heart attack.
Okay.
Okay. Being looked at for kidney disease to avoid people having to go on dialysis.
Like if they're in renal failure kind of thing?
Renal failure type thing.
Okay.
Liver disease, we've talked about this, fatty liver disease.
Right.
And now looking at sleep apnea as well, and their effectiveness.
Sleep apnea.
Yeah, their effectiveness. But think about this; it's all logical.
If
your blood sugar and your weight are coming down, you would people. The majority of the reason people are on dialysis in this country is because of diabetic kidney disease.
Sure.
And of course, if you're on a medication that keeps your blood sugar low, you're less likely to have that. If you're on a medicine that decreases your blood sugar to help inhibit fatty liver disease, that makes sense because fatty liver disease primarily comes from the conversion of blood glucose to fat in the liver. So for those of you remember out there, fatty liver disease is a misnomer. It's not mostly from eating fat. It's from having too many carbs in your system.
Well, that's going to be one of the questions that came in, so we'll cover the carb one here in a second.
All right, so we'll talk about that. Now they're looking at this for arthritis. Again, makes sense. High blood sugar causes inflammation in joints. Your arthritis is going to decrease. Your joint pain is going to decrease. And also, you're going to weigh less. So that pressure on your knees and your hips is going to be less. Alzheimer's disease is now being looked at. I'm not sure of the connection there, but we've known for years that diabetics are at higher risk for dementia.
But do they think this is something you need to take before it develops, or something that can be used to treat it as you have it?
I think now, I think it varies entity by entity, different problem by different problem.
Okay.
So I think it both can be preventative and it can be a therapeutic intervention.
All right.
And then, a topic close to my heart that we've talked about, in fact, have recently done a few videos on, is the alcohol addiction issue.
Yeah, you because you're also involved with addiction medicine, addiction practice.
Right.
You've seen firsthand your patients go from being heavily dependent to a much, much less dependency on alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a personal opinion. You know, I think these medications are going to be approved for alcohol use disorder, which is kind of a catch-all phrase for alcoholism and binge drinking and problematic drinking. I think they will be approved for that sometime probably in the last 5 years.
But that doesn't include drugs, correct?
Well, they're looking at it for they're looking at these for drugs too.
Really?
So, we have good drugs for opiate use disorder now, Suboxone, which I've treated a number of patients with. There's never been a good drug for methamphetamine, which has been a big problem in the Midwest in rural areas.
Give me what's a term for methamphetamine? What's the street name for that?
Meth, usually. Meth. Yeah.
Okay.
Speed.
I'm cooking meth in my garage, kind of thing. That's what you're talking about.
You are, Terry.
No, I'm not, by the way. But was that show Breaking Bad or whatever it was?
Yeah, I haven't seen that show.
I've never seen it either.
I was thinking about watching it. I hear it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, but this does sound like it's quite promising in that area.
Yeah. So now we're getting back to the question of how long should you be on it?
Yes.
So I'm always, traditionally it's like use a medicine for the period. Use a medicine if you need to use it. Use it for the period you need to use it. But my hope is it doesn't become a crutch for not making the lifestyle changes that are essential.
But doesn't that force you to make the lifestyle changes? Because if you're drinking too much, you don't want to drink anymore.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of forcing you to make that lifestyle
Well,
change.
I'm talking about coming off the medication.
Yeah, so if I come off it, am I going to want to drink again?
I think cravings come back. I mean, you hear patients that are on it for obesity say the food noise comes back.
All right, so if that's the case, why wouldn't I maintain some type of low dose?
And that's, I think, probably going to be what evolves over time for people to maintain a low dose. But, this is always a struggle, in my clinical work with patients. It's like, are we going to go up in dose or is it time to go down in dose? Because it requires motivation and effort to bring people down to lower doses and then eventually potentially titrate them off the medication.
So the lady in Florida who asked the question, she's trying to lose weight. Let's say she loses her weight. How long should she stay on it? What should she do?
I think the ideal answer is, lose your weight and come off it in less than a year. But I'm, well aware and I'm softening to the consideration that people might be on hopefully lower doses for long periods of time. And, unfortunately in the U.S., we're used to, this is the magic shot. It's soon to be a pill, by the way.
Well, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will not take shots or do not. But you think it's coming out in an oral?
Oh, it is. I think that I can't remember if there was recent FDA approval or the studies are being done, but they're taking semaglutide, same medicine as Wegovy and Ozempic, basically increasing the dose, packaging it in a way that it's not destroyed by stomach acid.
Can they do? What's what is it called when you put a patch on?
Transdermal.
Can they do those?
I haven't seen that. That's a thought, though.
All right.
So
let's patent that real quick.
Okay, real quick before anybody listens to this podcast, we're ahead of you on this.
All right. So the oral was really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, because think about we had a little quick conversation about fluoride.
Yeah.
They put it in the water.
Yeah.
I mean, could in the future,
should we be putting semaglutide in the water?
I'm just wondering because it is a protein. Isn't it a protein?
Yeah.
It's a natural substance.
Yeah, it's a hormone.
It's a hormone.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're creating some crazy thing and sticking in the water. Let's patent that too.
Okay, I got it.
Get to RFK on that one.
Okay.
All right. You ready for the next question?
Yeah. Though I am going to mention, I also came across this item that showed the percentage of U.S. adults that are on a GLP-1. And it went from 1%, and this is for diabetes and weight loss, and potentially now coming down the pike other reasons. It went from 1% in 2019 to 4% in 2024. So there's a graph. You can see it's going up.
4% of the general population, or is that just U.S. population?
U.S. population.
4%.
Yeah, are on a GLP-1, either for diabetes
or weight
33%
people in the U.S. diabetic.
Yeah.
So that'll just think of the potential of growth in that market.
Yeah.
And that's why I bought stock in both those companies.
Okay, Terry. You're smarter than I am, I guess. Okay.
All right, next question. Again, this is a GLP-1 related question. We won't say who sent it. They are concerned about cost of GLP-1. Do you ever think it'll come down, and what do they pay in other countries?
There's no question the cost will come down over time.
Will there be more generic versions?
Yeah, so my understanding is pharmaceutical patents last for about 17 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so, the patent for weight loss, I don't know if the patent would go back to when, probably would go back to when it was first, Ozempic was first used commonly.
How long ago do you think that was?
8 or 9 years ago.
So maybe 10 years will be off
Yeah.
label stuff. Okay.
So that's when generics would be available. The compounded medicines that are out there now are not generics. Generics have to be approved by the FDA.
Right.
So, there is this big battle going on out there related to the compounded medicines because the FDA has deemed that the shortage of GLP-1s is over.
Right.
That the companies can make enough medicine to supply the need for it. That was supposed to turn the switch off, that the compounding pharmacies were not allowed to make the medication anymore. And as you know, in my practice, we only provide brand name medications now.
Correct. You used to, but now you've
we used to do compounded medicines, but we aren't doing them any longer.
Right.
And part of that's, I'm just concerned, even though a few providers out there are still providing them, I'm concerned that people will abruptly have their access to these medications cut off. And so we're working with people with all the discount programs with the different pharmaceutical companies to make sure that they can still get medicine at the
And that's something
lowest
you
rate
do in your practice,
in the Metabolic MD's practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think the price is going to come down?
Well, it's competition. Yeah, there's going to be more and more competition, and that's going to bring the price down. For example, I think when an oral pill becomes available, that's going to provide a different avenue. That'll be expensive to start.
Sure.
But it might help bring down the cost of the weekly injections.
What is just curious, what is the average cost now of a brand name semi-glued? Oh, not.
So usually with the discount programs that the pharmaceutical companies have, actually one of them came out this last week with like first time dose will get you in the $200, $250 range for the first month.
First time dose, isn't that like what a drug dealer does? I mean, they're getting you in, they're getting you hooked. And
Here,
then
you want some candy,
Yeah.
little boy, right?
But isn't that kind of what I mean? But that's only first time dose.
Yeah, and then generally after that, with the discount programs, it goes up to about $500 a month. So that's 18 months ago it was $1,000 a month. So already it's down for ongoing dosing to $500 a month. Now, $500 a month, people look at that and say $6,000 a year. I can't afford that.
Yeah, but think if it does do all the miracle things we just talked about.
Yeah.
Is it that cheaper?
I mean, there are some value decisions to make. Well, so you're getting into a whole issue of, should, for example, an employer provide access to these medications,
Right.
which only a very limited numbers of employers do that. But, it's kind of like a capital investment. It's like, yeah, I can do that now to save money on the back end, but I don't even know if that employee, if you have an employee turnover of, 15% a year or 20% a year, it's like you might have treated those patients and they might be working for somebody else 5 years later. So
Yeah.
it's hard for companies just to allocate an additional, because through insurance it is $1,000.
So why the other part of this question was, is it cheaper in other countries?
I reviewed a recent article. In fact, this was a Trump thing. You love Trump, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Trump said he knew somebody that was, an executive that was living in England, and that executive was this was part of Trump's push for we got to lower drug prices.
And I'm all for that. I think that's great.
I think we're all for that. But his, executive friend said he was paying about $90 a month in England for access to a GLP-1 medication. So
$90 a month.
Yeah. And I know, the political thing that was thrown out was was we need to have most favored nation clauses, meaning Americans should be able to get it for the lowest rate that anywhere else is offered. So, the drug companies invested billions of dollars into developing these medications. I understand they have to have a return. I can't speak to, what their pricing policies are from country to country. Sure. But your original question was, is the price going to come down? It's definitely going to come down over a period of time.
Well, I would tell listeners out there, hey, if it's cheaper in Canada, go get it. Go drive across the border.
But why do you do that, man?
But
strike that.
If you're
Can I ask the producer to strike that?
If you're
from
going to
this
go across
podcast?
the border, they're just going to throw rocks at you, right? We're not their favorite people anymore. So you can't go south. Can't go north.
I don't know what the cost is in Canada, and don't be. Please
don't go to Greenland.
Please don't be telling people to do stuff like that. Okay.
All right, you ready for the next question?
I am ready.
All right, this one is right up your alley. I actually agree with this question. Help me understand, and they said, help me understand in simple terms, what is a good carb? Okay. How do I know it when I'm walking down the aisle, basically? And what is a bad carb? Right. So give them a rule of thumb, basically, that they can apply.
I'll try and do that in simple terms.
All right.
Okay. So I think everybody in general knows sugars are not good. Okay, that doesn't mean you can't ever have any sugar, but it means you should really try and limit the amount of sugar intake you have. If you ever look at a graph from the amount of sugar Americans, and I don't have this open on my laptop right now, the amount of sugar Americans consume like in 1900 versus now.
No.
It went. I can't remember the numbers, but it's increased like, I can't remember the exact numbers, but like from 2 grams a day to, hundreds of grams.
But isn't that true with everything? Because we can go to a Kroger's and walk down and grab anything we want. First, in the 1900s, you had to grow it.
Yeah, you're right.
So
it's simpler time.
It's simpler time. All right. So tell me, how do I spot a good
So first
carb?
of all, sugar. Obviously limit sugar, but be aware there are different types of sugars too. So, for example, fructose, the table sugar is sucralose.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that is one type of sugar. There's some data that says fructose, which is what you're going to see in most of your processed food and all your sugary drinks, is being focused on as a worse cause of insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is this thing that ends up keeping your blood sugar higher for a longer period of time.
Right.
And that actually the traditional sugars have less of an effect on insulin resistance than fructose does. Fructose, of course, is made from corn syrup.
Okay. So corn syrup, bad.
Yeah. Fructose.
Fructose, bad.
Yeah. Fructose. And, fructose mostly in sugary drinks and processed food. So you see fructose on the label, I would try and stay away from that. Okay, so that's sugars, okay? So the remainder of types of carbs are broken down into 2 types, complex carbohydrates and fiber, okay?
Okay.
So fiber is free. That's the term that I like to use because fiber is something that you eat and it stays in your gut. It never gets absorbed into your blood and it ends up in the toilet.
And isn't that what they, like the bread I eat, the low-carb bread,
yeah,
is low carb because they put fiber in it to counteract the wheat or the flour.
So you're looking at net carbs there.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at a label, it's going to be broken down into total carbohydrates, and under that it's going to be broken down into sugars, okay, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
And then fiber, okay, and then the remainder is what's called complex carbohydrates. So you can subtract the fiber. That's how you get to your low-carb bread. It might have 30 grams of carbs in it, but 22 may be fiber.
Okay.
So fiber is a good carb. Okay. Sugar's bad carb. Complex carbohydrates in moderation. And then fiber is good.
Fiber is good.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Terry?
I think...
Or the listener's question?
I was hoping for like I don't think I'll ever get the answer. I think they're looking for is there an aisle that you can walk down in a grocery store?
Unfortunately, it's not. Most grocery stores you have to kind of root out. Yeah, it'd be nice if there were a low carb aisle.
Yes.
And I think we're going to get there some point. But I've looked around here, Costco, Aldi's, Kroger's, and there is no low carb aisle.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but just we in terms of numbers, we like to keep people with net carbs, which is just sugar plus the complex carb component. For my patients, we generally, as a low carb diet, keep them under 50. But the typical diet in America is like 300 grams of carbs a day, and of course that's why we have the obesity epidemic and diabetes epidemic we have. And then I want to mention one more thing while we're on this topic of carbs. Whenever you eat a carb, try and include some fiber in that, because the fiber in your gut will slow down the absorption primarily of that complex carb and sugar, so it'll help prevent the high spike. So if you're eating a carbohydrate,
eating an Oreo.
Yeah, Oreos probably don't have any fiber in them.
I know what. So I eat an Oreo.
Yeah.
What do I grab alongside of it to cram down my throat after I eat that Oreo? What's a good idea?
Why don't you go ahead and make sure that you're getting?
Somebody's at the doorbell at our business.
That's Terry's Ring doorbell. So
that's Alexa telling me.
Oh, telling you. Oh.
All right, keep going with the fiber. So I ate my Oreo. Okay. What's a good?
Yeah. I mean, high fiber. Have broccoli with your Oreos. Okay.
Yeah, that's never going to. That would never happen.
Broccoli,
in a million years.
Asparagus. Basically high fiber vegetables. Berries are the best fruit with high fiber in them.
Okay.
So really, just when you get complex carbs, get fibers as well. Okay.
Complex carbs, get fibers as well. All right, so one last question for you, and this is right up your alley. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This is a question that I would probably ask, but I didn't. If I don't like to work out, how do I moderate, or how do I get motivated to do a workout, and what's a good way of starting? Because this person is having a hard time starting to work out.
Well, I think the first thing to do is to recognize that workouts are generally broken down into two parts: cardiovascular and strength training.
Yep.
All right. And there can be hybrids of that, which is high-intensity interval training, like Orange Theory you've heard about.
I've never heard of it, but that's okay.
You've never heard of Orange Theory?
No.
Is that right?
What do you think?
You've been living under a rock, Terry?
I do live under a rock.
Okay. So what I emphasize to people, because muscle mass decreases insulin resistance, which is a big problem with the majority of my patients, is that make sure you're incorporating strength training. And what I told you, we talked about the news feeds I have. One of the variables related to longevity is your degree of muscle mass. And actually, there are new studies coming out specifically that talk about grip strength. There are devices that measure grip strength, and there's a direct correlation between strength, grip strength, and longevity. So if you're having trouble getting motivated, you don't have to spend forever on the treadmill or the stair stepper, but I would start working in incrementally just some kind of basic strength training. And
like the bands. I got the bands. I like the
bands, low weights at home. A lot of people are intimidated if they haven't worked out in the past regarding, going to the gym and, I got to pump iron and I got to be in that environment with all the behemoths that are there with huge muscle mass. You don't have to do that. You can start at home, get in 20 or 30 minutes 3 times a week with some light dumbbells that you can get on Amazon, or some bands that you can get on Amazon for $25, and just get going. But in general, the breakdown I give to my patients is, let's spend 3/4 of your workout time on strength training. So you can complement that with some kind of cardiovascular, fast walking, If you want to get on a bike or a treadmill, you can do that. But 3/4 of your time in general is what I tell my patients should be spent on strength training.
Well, all right. That's our question and answer series today. If you have a question, please email it to, what's a good email address?
You can go get us at info@cgmdoctor.com.
Yep, that's a good one.
cgm-doctor.com or info@metabolicmds.com.
All right, so we'll do this again once we get some more questions teed up here. But thanks for joining us today on the Metabolic MD with Dr. Paul Kolodzik. I'm Terry O'Brien, your producer. Any last words of wisdom?
No, other than I want to thank the listeners for joining us and putting us in the top 5% of podcasts.
All right, well, that's it, folks. We'll see y'all soon.